Hello everyone, and welcome to some more horrific news. Okay, this popped up just after I talked to Calvin on Sunday, and it seems quite relevant, so I thought we'd take a look at it. Studio horror needs to take a lesson from indie horror. With Blumhouse's creatively bankrupt year, are there lessons the studio can learn from the indie horror world? There used to be a very big difference when talking about independent horror and mainstream horror. The latter would often be much more tame, with the goal of maximizing the audience, therefore maximizing box office. Indie horror would often be darker, going for moments that would stick with you long after the credits roll, but as society has shifted into this different entertainment landscape, there's more of a desire than ever for something wholly unique, mostly in the sake of profit. Thinking outside of the box is rewarded, as it's all about grabbing attention. It's why a film like Longlegs can come out and absolutely light the world on fire, because filmmakers are being forced to take risks in an attempt to get people to the theaters. Audiences are tired of the same old same old. This has never been more evident than with the failures of Blumhouse's 2024 lineup. Night Swim, Imaginary, and Afraid are amongst the most creatively bankrupt and desire for profit types of films out there. PG-13 horror is designed to maximize audience reach, while coincidentally being completely barren of any originality. Afraid simply ripped off Megan, which was a rip-off of Child's Play, and I don't know about you, pools stopped being scary the moment I learned to swim. These were hollow experiences, completely devoid of entertainment, and while Blumhouse may still consider themselves indie, they're about as studio as you can get these days. So if I say studio, I'm mostly talking about them. That's not to say all mainstream horror is bad. The studios have made a lot of great films over the years, but it's when they're going the indie approach versus just sequelizing or trying to take advantage of a property that they truly have success. Even just a decade ago, the idea of Longlegs being released theatrically was a long shot. This kind of horror simply wasn't viable for that kind of release. They're so risk averse, and they'd rather make a well-received Dutch movie from 2 years ago and actually develop an original story. And sure, Speak No Evil kicks ass, but that doesn't change the fact that a remake of a film already in English is Conversion 101. Yet it seems as though horror is one of the only genres where originality can be done on a cheaper level and still succeed. Streaming has all but taken out the mid-tier comedies and action films, usually made in the 60 to 70 million range, but those genres are harder to do on a lower budget. Sure, comedies don't need big effects, but Kevin Hart isn't cheap, so budgets tend to balloon. There always needs to be that anchor of familiarity to get them into a movie theatre seat, yet horror doesn't always need that. Horror fans will show up to a movie with no name stars and made for under 10 million. The only promise you need to make to horror fans is that you're going to try and scare them. Success rate will depend on the individual person, but it's a simple exchange. I give you money, you make me squirm in my seat for 90 minutes. Yet, why are studios starting to make the same mistakes they do in other genres, instead of focusing on what works? Strong-arming creatives instead of letting them do their thing will often result in a subpar product. Blumhouse's 2025 lineup seems to be splitting in the face of originality, with Megan 2.0, an untitled Insidious movie, The Black Phone 2, and Five Nights at Freddy's 2, all expected to release. And who knows what foreign remake they'll target now? The Speak No Evil is a nice little success. This is why it's on us as the audience to seek out great cinema, and not go simply because it's the weekend's new release. The studio and indie world will just become more and more intermingled as we lose out on more and more mid-tier films, and we just have to hope that those meddling execs, who usually focus on the bigger fare, don't start setting their sights on their lower budget offerings, because otherwise, horror is doomed. Now, I fully acknowledge that indie horror is capable of being absolute shit. There are entire YouTube channels dedicated to all the awful films that get made on a daily basis, and sometimes too much creativity and lack of supervision can be a bad thing. But I'll take something that's trying to fulfill some kind of creative niche versus solely trying to eke out a profit. Longlegs, Cuckoo, and Strange Darling are among the year's best, and they're completely original works, where the filmmakers were allowed to see their vision through, and I'll take that over a bloodless CGI bear. What do you think of the current state of horror? Do you think mainstream horror is dying? Is indie horror taking over? Will Blumhouse ever turn their slate around? Let us know in the comments below. And that is it. Alright, so I have touched on this loads of time. I had a good chat with Calvin on Sunday from 7th Street Productions about indie horror. At the end of the day, the main studio complex is creatively bankrupt at the moment. It's just the end of a long line of decisions and the wrong people being in. I'm talking purely due to nepotism and lack of imagination. They don't want new people in, they want people to know. It's clicky little town, and it's really degraded over the years for many reasons. Horror hasn't got to the stage yet where the creators are actually calling the fans names, although a couple of individuals like Jordan Peele, David Gordon Green, Ridley Scott have had an attempt at it, but we haven't got to that stage as the other genres are actively fighting with the customer base, which is just nuts in my opinion. Why would you do that? Anyone running a business knows that you look after your customers. They're the one that pay your wages, but hey ho. But yeah, we're seeing all the releases coming out, not just Blumhouse, but other studios as well. Remake, prequel, requel, reboot. It's just depressing. There's nothing fun at all. So it's great when I get to see something out of the ordinary, something actually made with just a little bit of heart. Now, Tyler Nicholas, he's saying here about being scared. I think as a horror fan, you want to be scared, but I think when you're many years into it, that stops being the focus because you've basically seen most of it. For me, it's tell me an engaging story and yes, make me squirm, few uncomfortable scenes, have that edge still on it that doesn't make it an action movie. I'll always refer to the highway scene in Final Destination 2 compared to myriad of highway chase scenes in action movies. You can tell the difference. It's horror because it doesn't hold back, where that's kind of brushed off to the side in other genres, which is fair enough. That's why they do what they do. Horror does what it does. Can the studios learn? I don't think they can. I think they need to lose enough money that it hurts them, that they have to really go back to basics. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of any corporate entity. Anyone that's worked in them know you're not telling the senior executives what to do or giving suggestions. They'll nod and smile, but at the end of the day, they're so wrapped up in their little bubbles that they don't care. And that's even if you're working in the same company as them. So that's just the way it is with them. What we can do though is support indie creations. It's really that simple. Just keep an eye out. I try and look here as much as I can for items coming out. I try to tie up with indie creators so they'll come on the show and speak to us and let us know what's coming up. And more importantly, this one thing they're really terrible at doing is giving me updates when things become general release. It's all fine and well making a movie and it goes to the film festivals, but if the average customer can't get their hands on it, then what's the point? So that's something that indie horror needs to get a grip on and do better, is that sort of follow through to the final stage. Many Kickstarters have you seen, and unless you're part of the Kickstarter, you're never going to see the thing. That's not helping anybody. But together we can find a solution. We just support the right projects, and it doesn't matter. This strange competitiveness of social media doesn't help either. You either like a movie to be in one team or don't to be another, and it comes out of nowhere and it's just utterly retarded. It actually pisses me off a bit because it doesn't really help the movie. And the strange movies they pick that end up getting forgotten about before they even finish, you just wonder why they bother. But then the sort of people that do that on social media have no life. That's all they live for. So you can't really regard them as like real people, to be honest. It's one person with 50 sock puppet accounts because that's all they do. All their life is just commenting things. But we'll see how it goes. If one thing, the horror genre is a bit more aware than others, so I think we have more of a chance of surviving, where other franchises are just being burned to the ground. But anyway, let me know what you think. And until next time, keep updated with the channel, do the type of tricky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.